So Justin, my husband, and I met in June of 2007, and we dated, obviously until we got married in 2013. But so Prop 8 stands out for two reasons in my mind. First of all, and I'm guessing June or July, about a year into our relationship of 2008, the congressman who I was working for had a fundraising trip to Los Angeles. Anyway, we went out there a couple of days early in order to have a vacation as a couple for the first time, and we're in West Hollywood having lunch outside, and I saw Ross Matthews, who I was a big fan of at the time, at the same place, and so we were like having this celebrity moment, and then all of a sudden a canvasser Prop 8 came up. And for the first time in our relationship, that sticks out to me as the moment where we gave a political contribution to something meaningful together, and we made the decision to do it together, right? So sure, I might have made political contributions along the way, but like from that point on, we've always, been kind of political donors together. And it was to Prop 8. It was something very meaningful to us. And the fact that we happened to, that was the first place we went on vacation, it really stuck out to me. So fast forward to November, and Prop 8 loses. That night, I wasn't the campaign manager for Tim Walz, but I was the finance director and political director, and we won. And he won re-election for the first time, and he won by a huge number, and it was like not even close. And everybody was so excited and celebrating, and I remember not really realizing that Prop 8 was losing until all of a sudden Justin was really emotional. He was really, really upset. And I said, what's wrong? Like, we're all celebrating, what's wrong? He's like, we lost in California. And I immediately knew what he meant. And I was dumbfounded. Like, it had such an impact. Like, I went from the highest of highs to like, oh my gosh, we lost. Like, and it was such a weird moment where everybody felt like it was a winner. Like, Barack Obama won. We won re-election, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but we lost in California. How crappy is that? Like, it was devastating. It was really powerful. And it really bothered Justin. Yeah.
I assume you spoke with him about it. Did you get a sense from him about what it was, about this defeat, in several states away, half a continent away?
Well, I think that probably it's the same for both of us, which is it's just this like crazy public rejection of who we were as people. Like, no, you're never going to be, equal to us, right? I mean, it very much was in our heads at the time. It was very much a fight for equality. And having worked in the movement, I feel like that's incredibly off message. But for us, it was like a whole state just told us that they refused to acknowledge our equal humanity, and it was hard. I mean, it was just such a rejection. It was like just being thrown out.
I think people were really surprised that we lost in California. I think our community was really surprised. I don't think that we, as that the campaign conveyed how, until October, it didn't convey how close it was, how much danger we were in, or at least people didn't buy it, because I think there was a lot, there were a lot of people living in the places that we won overwhelmingly, San Francisco and West LA and elsewhere, who were like, of course we're going to win this. It's California. We're liberal California. And I think people didn't believe it, didn't expect it. So there was plenty of that. And I also think that people really thought the ads were bad on our side, and they thought our opponents just cleaned our clocks with respect to the ads. And but it ended up being a close to $100 million campaign, 50 million on both sides, and so the ads were just continuous. And people, I think that was part of the when the harms kids stuff and the little girl saying, "Mommy, guess what I learned in school today? That a boy can marry." I think that was, people were enraged by it in our community. I was too. And people saw our responses and they thought they weren't good, and they thought we didn't have a good answer. And so I think that made a lot of people mistrust the campaign.
I feel like after Prop 8 passed, I had an inner narrative and an outer narrative.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I mean, the morning after it passed, Sandy and I and the kids had spent the night at the hotel venue where the campaign was hoping to celebrate defeating Prop 8. And it was I finally made it back up to the hotel room by about 2, and it was clear that we lost. And I think Sandy and I both laid in bed completely awake and not saying a word. I finally got up at 6, showered, and when I came out, she'd ordered breakfast for the kids, and it was clear she told them, because they both looked at me, sort of sad faces, and I said, and I think Julian, our son, said, "I'm sorry, Mom." And I was bound and determined I wasn't going to cry in front of them, and I said, I know, it's, I said, "Thank you, son. It's, I'm sad, but we're going to be okay. Our family is okay. Mommy and I are still married. We're going to be fine." And Ariana gave me a hug. She was only, I think, 6 at the time. And Julian gave me a hug, and he said, "That's right, Mom, and you just have to keep on going." And keep on fighting. You just have to keep on fighting. And so that was the outer narrative that I definitely projected, that look, yeah, this is terrible, but we're gonna get through this. This was like the trajectory of every civil rights movement. We got the shit kicked out of us, and we got to get back up and fight on. But internally, it really took a lot out of me, and it was probably a good 6 months before I felt back to normal. I don't consider myself a depressive personality. I've never had depression, but I look back and think, yeah, that was not a great period of time for me. And yet, I have to say, I could have never imagined the reaction nationally to the passage of Prop 8. It galvanized a whole new generation. And for every person who ever said to me, "Oh, well, of course we're going to defeat it," or "I don't need to give any money. Kate, we're going to win this. I mean, it's California." Every single one of those people had the reaction of, "Oh my hell." And people got involved, poured out in the streets. I ended up at a conference in Boston 2 days later, which was really hard to do. And Sandy called me, and I think it was that maybe Friday night, and she said, and there was a ton of noise, and I was like, "Where are you?" And she said, "We're in the Castro with like 10,000 people protesting the passage of Prop 8. I had no idea that was happening. And I turned on the TV and I thought, okay. It actually made me feel much less alone. Mm-hmm. It really felt like this is not the end for sure. And while I will never say that the passage of Prop 8 was a good thing, I actually don't think we would have won marriage as quickly as we did in this country if we hadn't lost.